In the last videos we were looking into arrays. I just deleted what we had before because we're going to dive a little bit into the objects, and also going forward we're going to be using both objects and arrays together because that's awesome. But for now let's just leave the array up here and create an my object. And the object is very similar to as an array, as in you can store data, multiple pieces of data in it. But where we only have one item here for, like, we put in 1 and 0, 1, 2, that's actually the number of it, but here we could say like speedy and 8 and brown. This will make sense in a moment, I guess, I hope. So this could be like our array. This could contain these informations. But with an object we can do a little bit more. So let's create an object, and we use, instead of the squared brackets, we use a curly bracket now. And this is very similar to how you would look at a CSS. So when you create a selector, like you would create an H2, you would have your curly brackets, you would write color and something like white, not white, yeah, well, let's go with white. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be like how we would change the color of our H2s on our pages. Woo! We're going to do something very similar here. We're going to give it, instead of color, we're just going to create whatever we want. We can call this name yo or noun. Doesn't matter. This is what we decide. We're going to call it name. And the name here, just to follow from the array, is going to be speedy. And instead of like CSS, we would use a semicolon. We just use a colon for this, to change line, to create a new thing we want to use. And we also want an age. And since it's a number, we don't want our parentheses, our apostrophes around it. And last one is fur color. So that would be brown inside this. And I'm just deleting this down here because it's gonna destroy the JavaScript. But as you can see, we're storing the same data, speedy, 8, and brown. But with my object here, I have something attached to it. I have a property attached to it. And in this case, a name and an age and a fur color. So if I were to if I had more than one dog or object or item or whatever you want to use for word, instead you can just copy paste this part here and reuse this with the name, age, and fur color. Whereas up here we would have to create for the third one, then a dog with like I don't know why you're a chili, that's going to be the name of your dog, and the age, and so on and so on. And it's kind of hard if you have a lot of information to separate them. So see, well, this information about the dog here starts here and ends here. Whereas with an object, it's way more easy for us to see and spot where the different information fits in and to which object and so on. Let's leave it at this and try to print this one out. So just do a console log like this. And inside a console log we're going to print out, well, let's just start with my array to see what that actually looks like over here. So now it just prints out the information speedy, 8, and brown, and 0, 1, 2, right? So the number, or where it's being placed if we wanted to call it. So if we wanted to call the only the name, speedy, cool. So let's try with the object instead, my object. And we want to print out our just the entire object. That's the first part, like we did before. So we have speedy, name, speedy, age, and so on and so on. Let's expand this so we can see it a little bit more. So instead of 0, 1, 2, we would have a property name attached to it instead. Cool. Let's try to print out only the name. Before we would do this and type in 0 for the name. If we were to use the squared brackets, we can, then we need to do apostrophes inside them and type name. And then we can also just print out the name. So this is similar to how we would print out the array, but most of the time you will see people doing it this way. So just using the dot notation and typing in which you want to print out, in our case name. So we should only print out speedy here, or if you wanted to print out the age, then we type in age, that's 8, and fur color, only the fur color, and so on. So that's how we can grab data from our objects by calling the name of the object. So we can change, instead of my object, we can call it my dogs. And now we need to change this here to my dogs as well. And if this fur color change, we of course need to change the name down here. so everything fits together. But that's how we can store information in an array and grab it and show it in a console log.